We're on part two of my discussion with my lifelong friend Michael Gillman, and we were here to discuss the PBS documentary Resolve to Live and Die, The Revolutionary Roots of Southwest Virginia, and we got to talking about all the other great things that he's doing, and we never got around to it in part one. So part two, we must discuss the documentary. So, how did this documentary come about? First of all, let me tell you, I was very interested in this from day one. I remember it was probably 2 years ago when you were setting up to do the Fincastle resolutions scene, filming it at the Willowbrook Jackson Umberger homestead. And I said, I'm going to get in there. And they said, we'll get you in. And I never made it, but I wanted to go over there and take pictures and do the story. But anyway, when you finally got the documentary done, couldn't wait to see it. And I mean, this is not your everyday local Wytheville shoot. This is professional, first-class film. And I'm looking up there, and there's my old buddy Michael Gillman, being the ultimate Wythe County historian that he is, just talking away about this stuff, and I have to tell you, I loved it. I watched it again live on PBS, but I was at the Millward screening. What was that like for you, seeing yourself on the big screen? Did you have a moment where you just went, whoa? Or was it just...
Honest to gosh, I wanted to run and hide.
Yeah, no, knowing you, I believe that. And then I thought when the lady from PBS was getting you up on the stage for the Q&A, I said, he's not gonna like this. But I knew you were the first one that they were gonna gun for, because you were dressed up in the period clothes.
Right,
So,
and you know, that was part of the deal. When they had the screening at the Millwall, they wanted people in period clothing and people who took part in the documentary. So I tried to get out of it. I really did. You can ask my director, Grant Gerlich, that.
Yeah.
But nope, I didn't get out of it.
But your first line on the stage was epic, and I have it recorded. Your first line on the stage in front of the microphone was, "I am wearing underwear."
Yes. Yeah, that was... Oh, gosh. Somebody had asked about the clothing, and the PBS producer, Lisa Fenderson, had said, I learned that they don't wear underwear. And so then it went directly to me, and I'm like,
because
okay, we've got to relax the crowd. I am wearing underwear. Okay?
You're right. I mean, because it's gonna go to you, because you're the only one sitting up there dressed like a patriot. So they're yeah, they totally railroaded you for that one. But it was the comment of the night. I think it should be a picture of you in that costume with the quote, "I'm wearing underwear" printed on T-shirts. I think it would sell like hotcakes. I would buy one right now.
That might be a good business.
Yeah,
right there. I am wearing underwear.
See, you need me for your marketing, man. We need to work together. We can do this thing.
I agree. $25 a shirt.
You said you went to Gettysburg. Gettysburg is on my bucket list. Gettysburg and Antietam. If I do that, I will write a book about it. So definitely, hollowed ground, if that's fair to say. I mean, I'm sure.
I think it is.
I'm sure. I know you know what I'm saying when you feel the history alive. I'm sure when you walk across that battlefield, you feel the souls that are beneath that ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's any battlefield, really, whether it's Revolutionary War, Civil War, War of 1812. We forget about the War of 1812.
Right.
I mean, anytime you go somewhere where so much life was lost and so much, I'm not going to say anger, but I'm going to say so much, conflict and disagreements, really, you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
But we don't have to feel that anymore. You know what I mean?
But the sad thing is we are feeling it, but we're feeling it in much more senseless ways. And this is not necessarily the way I wanted to segue into the documentary, but it's the way we do it anyway. And that's the fact that politics, I mean, I've never seen it uglier than it is right now. But what we have seen in this documentary is that politics has always been ugly, and people became patriots or loyalists sometimes because you were being to my brother and you're a patriot, so I'm going to be a loyalist. And that was the whole reason for siding. It was a globally affected war. It was not just between the British and the American colonies, and there were many Americans fighting other Americans.
Right. Which in our little part of the world, everybody thinks we're just in the mountains. We're hillbillies. We bearded. We drink our moonshine out of a jug that says Triple X on it or whatever.
Right, and we play
like you see in cartoons and all, and that's just not the case.
And we play the banjo and marry our first cousins.
Exactly, and so really, what I wanted to get out of this documentary, and I think we did that, is people in Southwest Virginia, the settlers, were not like that. These were well-educated men, landowners, and they produced a product with the Fincastle resolutions that would be echoed for up to, a year and a half, eventually in the Declaration of Independence. Now, do I think the Fincastle resolutions and the Declaration of Independence are actually connected? No, I do not. I think there's sentiments in the Declaration of Independence that echo what the Fincastle Committee of Safety put down on paper. But if we put in that the Declaration of Independence echoed the Fincastle resolutions, then we lose sight of the history and the education of the men who were able to do that first in Southwest Virginia.
Right.
And so while the documents could be compared, I don't like to compare them because then you get overshadowed by Jefferson and John Hancock and everybody. When we, in our little corner, had already done it.
Exactly. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so, really, what we need to do is celebrate the documents individually.
Mm-hmm.
And celebrate the men individually.
Mm-hmm.
Who had the, I guess, wherewithal to say, hey, in the Fincastle resolutions, they said our loyalty is to King George III. But if he's not going to respect that, we're going to live and die for our freedoms.
Right. And that was a very bold and dangerous statement to say. And we forget that this comes before Patrick Henry says, give me liberty or give me death. And history books teach such a watered down version of history. We don't learn about the Native Americans, the real pioneers of America in this country, that we came in and we were the ones who came in and brought diseases and all that stuff. But anyway, that's a whole nother ball of wax. What I wanted to talk to you about is something I think that is very near and dear to my heart, is Austinville. My great-great-aunt, who I wrote my first book about in 2012. I think you have that at the museum as well, Hazel Little Bud. There's a lot of Austinville history in there about that, and about Austinville that I think nobody had written about before. And when I heard that narrator, do you know the guy that narrated the documentary? Do you know his name?
I do not.
Anyway,
but I was watching the Ken Burns thing too, and their voices sound very, very much the same.
Right.
So I think it's the same person. It could be AI generated. I'm not sure.
It could be.
Now
but
my wife thinks that it sounds very familiar to the Discovery Channel show, The Moonshiners narrator.
All right. Well, there's just some further research, but anyway, when he said present-day Austinville in Wythe County, and you have the plaque of the Fincastle resolutions, I go, because that was the moment for me. Because yes, I live in Wytheville all my life. I love Wytheville. I love Wytheville history, and you know as well as I do that I'm as big of a supporter of the town museums as anybody you've got in Wytheville. But I think Austinville is much more historical. When you do that New River Trail that was the rail bed for the railroad, you can feel the centuries worth of history in that countryside, and it's still quiet, and it still looks much the way it did in the 1700s. It's just beautiful. I think it did not get a fair shake. And to hear that mentioned in that documentary, I was going, thank God. So, how important, because we're going to narrow it to because you had to narrow me down, because I threw in the shot tower and everything, which came after the Revolution. So, tell me, how important was Austinville in the Revolutionary War and Wythe County?
Well, you want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the lead mines being found in Austinville, there'd be no Wytheville or Wythe County.
Amen. I'm so glad I have you saying that on tape.
I think it was dumb luck on John Chiswell to find the lead. I know the story goes that he was running from Native Americans and he ducked into a cave and they ran by him and he happened to find lead deposits. That's a good story. I don't think that's the case. I think he was just out here snooping around looking for stuff.
But my dad used to say, and he said it with these politicians that he worked with all the time, and he would say, always beware of people who don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Exactly. And so you've got a good story. And it happened to, whether it's true or not, I can't say. I wasn't there in the 1750s when he found the lead mines. I don't know what was happening.
Right.
But certainly, if he hadn't found those lead deposits, would we have a railroad through the town? Would we have the town of Wytheville? The county seat of Wythe County actually was supposed to be at Fort Chiswell, where the Fort Chiswell Mansion is. Mm-hmm. But they deemed the ground not capable to hold a town. So they moved it to Wytheville, in which, now I will say that my two sixth grade grandfathers, Christopher Simmerman and John Davis, were the ones who donated the land to start this town. I will say that. But if it hadn't been for what was discovered in the Austinville area, I don't think we'd be here today with the railroad and the interstates and everything, because the lead mines and some type of mining existed for over 225 years in that section of the county.
Yep.
That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of people coming into this community. And that is a lot of people having a livelihood that may not have existed if it hadn't been for John Chiswell finding that. Mm-hmm. And so Austinville and even Ivanhoe, they often get overlooked, and even Speedwell, because they had those three communities were so rich in iron ore after the Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And so those three communities were born out of iron and lead.
Right.
And so, if that hadn't have happened, what would our county and town look like?
And was the main industry in Wythe County until 1982.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that, because it's the smaller communities that built Wythe County.
Yep.
Wytheville happened to be a good location for a town to have the center for the county with the courthouse and stuff.
Yep.
Wytheville was largely taverns and inns and lawyers and such, and that's been the thing since the beginning.
Yeah, and it still is to this day.
It's still a crossroads for people who are traveling.
Right.
And that's what the early settlers were doing after the Revolutionary War. The Great Wagon Road is Main Street, Wytheville. They had to have places to stay. They had to have, places to buy goods and everything to keep their traveling. And Fort Chiswell was a large part of that as well.
Right.
In the 18th century, we've actually got an account from a gentleman who came through Fort Chiswell in 1774. Well, Wytheville didn't even exist.
Right.
And so, if it wasn't for that southeastern part of the county and everything they had going on down there, I don't know where we would be at today as a town and a county.
So, because I'm running out of time, I could talk to you for hours and days on this, and I need to just record you for 10 or 12 hours, and I will
Don't get me going, Zach. I can talk all day.
Yeah, I will transcribe it, and you will be an author, because you must do a book on this, because we could talk about millions of things. But we got about 10 minutes, and there are some things I got to ask you about the documentary.
Okay.
The Fincastle resolutions, you seem to be inclined, am I correct? Again, we don't know. There are those who say they were written in Austinville. There are those who say that it was done at the McGavick Tavern, or the McGavick Residence. You seem to be of the opinion that it was done at the McGavick Residence. Is that correct?
In a sense, I think it makes sense.
Right, because they would have had to have passed the McGavick Residence, and why would they go 8 miles further just to sign a paper when James McGavick's name is on it, and they had to pass his house.
Right.
And you make a very valid point with that.
Well, to extend on that, government buildings at the time were, they always had King George and Lord Dunmore in the county courthouses at that time. And if you're in I wouldn't say open rebellion, I started to, but if you're thinking about splitting off, do you want to do that in a government building where they're hanging up in a portrait? And so there's this wonderful thing that still exists at the University of Wisconsin, go figure. It's called the Draper Manuscripts. And Lyman Draper in the 1800s went around Southwest Virginia and gathered up all of these colonial letters from families and documented them and kept them. And so they're at the University of Wisconsin.
And why on God's green earth are they in Wisconsin?
I have no idea. Some of them have been published in books. I am thankful enough to have a few of those on scans. And so we find in December of 1774 that William Preston's calling for a committee of safety meeting at the Fincastle Courthouse. That's over in Austinville at the Lead Mines.
We know that's in Austinville.
We know that. In January of 75, they signed these Fincastle resolutions. But in the Draper manuscripts, in February of 1775, Preston is calling for a meeting to meet at McGavick's Tavern. We don't have that burning letter in January, first few weeks of January of 1775 saying, hey, you meet at McGavick's Tavern or you meet at the Fincastle Courthouse. We have letters on both ends of January 20th, 1775. And so that's why I think there needs to be an open discussion of to exactly where they were signed.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question a little bit off that path. What happened? Do you know what happened to the original Fincastle Courthouse building?
We don't. We assume it was probably torn down in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. There is a photograph that exists of some old log buildings in the Austinville area that I've got here at the museum around that area. And is it the courthouse? I don't know. Nobody knows. But it's certainly an old enough building to certainly spark a conversation. Wow. But that building doesn't exist anymore.
Right. And so I would love to see a replica building put there and turned into an Austinville museum.
It'd be great. It'd be great. Austinville deserves it.
It does. Absolutely it does in so many ways. And tell me a little bit about George Floor. We didn't hear about George Floor during the documentary, but they said that there was a story that was extricated from the documentary that'll be online later about George Floor, and I think that was really cool.
Yeah, of course, George Floor is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts here in Wythe County. Mm-hmm. He was the first preacher at St. John's. He also did some preaching out in the western end of Wythe County. And his story is wild. He's a German-born soldier who fought in the French army in the Royal DuPont Regiment, who stormed Redoubt No. 9, which ultimately ended the Revolutionary War in Yorktown. Mm-hmm. And he went back to France, was training to be a physician, and actually witnessed the execution of I forgot the king's name now. He witnessed the execution of the King of France at that time, and Marie Antoinette. And decided that medicine was not his cup of tea. So he ended up back in Pennsylvania and trained at the Lutheran Synod to be a Lutheran minister. And he was sent out to the Virginia frontier and landed in Wytheville. And his cabin and everything still stands at St. John's Lutheran Church, just north of Walmart on exit 70 on the Interstate 81.
You could just picture all this happening and Walmart sitting there off to the side and people going, you know.
Yeah, and he's buried there.
Near Walmart. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Near Walmart. And there's an 1856 drawing from Lewis Miller that shows the original St. John's Church, and the St. John's Church is still standing, but it also shows George Floor's grave right there in front of the old church. And, the new church is still standing. The log church is long gone. Mm-hmm. But George Floor, he was in that group of French and Continental soldiers that secured that win at Yorktown. And he ends up in Wytheville as a Lutheran minister.
All right. So, final question, because I'm out of time, not because I don't want to keep talking. I live on South 4th Street, directly across the street from Thomas J. Boyd's home on South 4th Street, about 2 blocks from the railroad tracks.
Yeah, I know that house.
If I lived there during the Revolutionary War, given my standings, can you give conjecture as to whether I would be a patriot or a loyalist.
Being there and knowing the people who were settled in this region, you've got a good chance to be a loyalist, but you also have a greater chance to be a patriot, because in this region of Southwest Virginia, about every third house was loyal to the king.
Every third house.
So you'd have a 2/3 chance to be a patriot.
It would be a luck of the draw kind of thing.
It'd basically be whatever your mindset was.
Mm-hmm. And that would be dependent on how brave I wanted to be.
Well, I mean, being a patriot was a hanging offense if you lost.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And
I've got ancestors that were patriots and Tories. The first will written in Wythe County is one of my ancestors, Nicholas Wyrick. It's in all German script, and he was loyal to the king. That's the first will written in Wythe County.
Do you feel like, with all that history and the fact that your 6 great-grandfathers purchased the land that became the town of Wytheville, do you feel like that they have guided you to be where you are right now?
Oh gosh.
I mean, how spiritual do we want to get with this? But I'm a very
well, you know what my father has done for a living, so I can say I could get into the paranormal and the spiritual stuff, because for people who don't know, my father has been a funeral director for
decades,
52 years now. He's still in the business,
right?
And so, gosh, I don't know, Zach. That's a good, interesting question that nobody's ever asked me before.
Good. I'm glad to be one of those people. That means I am a qualified journalist. All right.
I love good paranormal and ghost stories, and
I'm not necessarily saying did you have a ghostly visitation that says you will be this. I'm talking about
right.
in your soul. Do you believe you were moved by your ancestors to be where you are? I mean, do you even believe in that kind of stuff?
There's a possibility, because I can go through eastern Wythe County where some of my ancestors were. I can go through western Wythe County where my other ancestors were. And there's this feeling, and I've told my wife this, there's this feeling of home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm special or medium or anything like that. I just have this sense of feeling that it's like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's the answer I wanted. Thank you very much. Because I think it is too obvious that, your 6th generation great-grandfather, and the first will in Wythe County was written was an ancestor of yours, and you happen to know this because you work for the town. I don't think these things happen by accident or by coincidence. I don't happen to believe that, and I just wondered if you agreed with me or not. So,
I think I do. Like I said, I have those feelings when I pass certain spots.
Right.
And it's like, oh,
yeah,
I know this place. It looks familiar.
I'm home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm home. And indeed you are. Thank you for what you do for Wythe County. Thank you for being a great friend to me over the last 35 years and counting.
Thank you too, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for what you do for the county. Thank you for this wonderful documentary. Do you think PBS will be returning to Wythe County anytime soon? We certainly hope so, because we have much more we need to say.
I can't really let the cat out of the bag, but there's probably something on the horizon.
Something in the works. That's all I need to know. All right. Well, thank you very much for this time. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you having me on here, and I look forward to any future conversations you want to have.
Well, you can bet there will be some. So thank you very much.